Good afternoon. Welcome back to Your Biz at thatchannel.com, on thatchannel.com. The camera's a little late, so I'm going to repeat that. Good afternoon. Welcome back to Your Biz at thatchannel.com, on thatchannel.com. I'm Randy Thomas. I'm sitting down with Mr. Ricky Neckles. Ricky, welcome back again. Thanks for coming in. We're having a great talk here, a little bit about the entrepreneur mind, and I always love getting into that because I don't think people, like even for yourself, when you said you left the corporate environment to go into entrepreneurship, did you have any idea what you were really getting into?
No, I didn't have the feeling of it. I've heard stories of other entrepreneurs, but you usually hear the success stories. You don't usually hear the failures. You don't usually hear the hard times.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at it as glamorous, and day one hits, and month one rolls by, and bills need to be paid, and there's no money. It's different. It's different. So I can't really explain that feeling. But the reward is a feeling I can't explain either. So I guess it has its pros and its cons, and it's a risk-reward relationship.
Right.
And the reward outweighs the risk.
Let's talk about some of the biggest or the most important characteristics of entrepreneurs, I guess. You talked about being a leader. It sounds like leadership is something very high on your totem pole, as you say.
Yep. And I think it's being able to be a first mover, not necessarily a follower, but moving, taking a step without people supporting you. I think a lot of the psychological aspects of your family and your friends when you're doing it, it's like, why? Like, you invested $32,000 at University of Toronto, and you're now just going off on your own. And it's get a job, stay in your job. It's all that pressure. You have to be able to sort of overcome that. And I think leaders have the ability to know what's right for themselves and move forward, whether they got the support or not. And they realize that the followers will follow once they're moving. So I think that characteristic is important. But I think that the ability to not be lazy is very critical. You have to work hard. It's not a joke. It's not I can get by, as you can do in the corporate world. So lazy people can't be entrepreneurs. And I think that the idea is to become lazy, but it's hard work to become lazy.
Right.
And there's no gap in between that. I haven't seen it any other way. Right.
Is your phone on all the time?
My phone is on all the time. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have times where you just say, I will not answer, I will not look?
Because I'm not so much in sales anymore, my calls are not necessarily as critical. I know earlier on when I was the actual sales guy for my business and going door to door with restaurants, and I'm having general managers call me at 11 o'clock because their pagers won't work.
Right.
And I have to deal with it because I am the person responsible.
Yeah.
That was tough. And those periods were challenging because you never really get a break. But now, again, it's a little bit more, it's a little bit more conservative in terms of the calls I get, the hours I get. So it's not that much of an issue anymore.
If somebody was to go to just before they start university and they were to ask you, what program should I enroll in? And I mean either commerce, business, finance, engineering, or whatever, what would it be in your mind? What would you tell them to take?
If I could do it all over again, I would do it the same way. And I was at that point going into university thinking business or engineering. However, looking at statistics and looking at what a lot of engineers do, they have a way of thinking. They understand processes, they understand systems, and then a lot of engineers end up going to business school and doing their MBAs, or going to law school, or going on to be CEOs of corporate companies, or being entrepreneurs. So I think the foundation of it is very solid. However, I think that people that work hard and know what they want, regardless of what they take, will succeed. So I'm just looking at it from a practical standpoint. If I was debating between engineering and business, I would literally go engineering because then I can do both.
Right.
If I want business, then I really stream out my engineering opportunity. So I've always looked at and what I tell youth is to keep all your options open. So even if you're in high school, you're thinking college, university, aim for university. That way you can do both.
Right.
So in the same concept, I strongly believe that a core foundation and things like engineering is strong.
See, because I went through business school. I took marketing and business administration and at university, and yet all my friends are doing very, very well. All the ones that are in marketing, whatnot, are doing six figures, a couple hundred plus. But all my friends that were in finance are multi-millionaires.
Yep.
And that's why I was asking that, because if I would, in my mind, I would push people to go to finance.
Yep.
Because it sounds to me when you talk about processes and see, people seem to have this whole thing about entrepreneurs. We're so out there and we're so wild and crazy and we can do what we want. And when in reality, I don't think that's what an entrepreneur is, because everything that you've mentioned about processes and about working hard and about being results oriented, that has nothing to do with art.
Yep.
So it sounds to me again that would you consider yourself to be a it sounds like to me you have a very strong base of process and ABC, get it done, but you have this passion, this inspiration. The fire is more like when you talk about community and whatnot, there seems to be that side of you, but it's all on top of a base of process.
Yes, and I through my experience, through engineering training, through my Accenture experience, and through my actual business experience, I think that having systems is important because you're running a business. And if you look at businesses like Microsoft, they started with entrepreneurs. They've gotten to where they've gotten because they understood that they need processes, they need systems. So I can't ignore that. At the end of the day, you can't be a loose cannon and wild unless the business is you.
Were you like that when you were young? Were you always about process? As an athlete, were you very much a practice person, or were you just give me the ball and let me play?
I was practice, and the concept of Tiger Woods says, perfect practice makes perfect.
Right.
I used to work hard in practice, and I used to be that one who was the captain of the team and making sure everyone else is working and doing their suicides, and I'm actually showing up on time. So I think what happens behind the scenes creates what happens in front, and most people don't see what happens behind the scenes, and they think it's all in the front. But when they get exposed to it, they understand how important every little piece of the puzzle is to make the whole show run.
Yeah, the only way you're ever going to get in the zone is if you've been practicing perfectly.
Exactly.
And again, I'm sure you experienced that as an athlete. I did too, where there were certain times where I was unbeatable in my mind. Like everything just seemed so easy.
Yep.
Everything seemed in slow motion, and that was all because, again, at that certain period of my life, I was practicing all the time.
Yep.
So I relate that back to business, and I say, when we look at our children, I hate to be judgmental, but I think that, like, I can look at my brothers or my nephews, and I can tell you which ones are going to succeed. Not easily, because they understand process and they understand the work behind the scenes. Do you find that way? Do you find when you look at your relatives or people in your family, you can tell that in a very, like, you can just see the characteristics in them?
Yeah, definitely. Just by the fact that they take everything they do seriously. As little as it is, that's what creates the big things. The little things create the big things.
Right.
And even from an entrepreneurship standpoint, I find that a lot of entrepreneurs think they can just go out there and do things, but they don't have any training. So the fact that they haven't thought to themselves to go do the training and learn the little pieces shows that they may not have the characteristics to succeed per se.
Right.
And I'm not saying they won't, but while they're actually doing it, they're going to have to learn. And they're going to stop and learn, or they're going to make the mistakes. So either way, you have to learn the fundamentals.
Right.
Whether you start off with the fundamentals or you finish with them, you have to learn them in order to succeed.
Right.
And I don't want people to ignore that.